Moving to New York City changed everything for me, not just as a creative or an entrepreneur, but my entire life perspective. Let me tell you why. What up, everybody? For those who are new here, my name is Jordan Bentley. I'm an entrepreneur from Los Angeles, Forbes under 30, and the founder of Hypland. On this channel, I share a lot of my different stories for why I run my business, lessons that I've learned, and hope to inspire somebody. Today's conversation we're going to be talking about is why I moved to New York City from Los Angeles, what that experience has been like, and if you are on the edge of moving from somewhere, hopefully maybe sway you to do the same thing yourself. So let's go. Let's jump right into it. First things first. I'm from LA. What was it like living in Los Angeles? Living in LA for me was perfect. My family's there, my friends there, my business there. It's a very comfortable city. LA, in my opinion, is one of the best cities in the United States because the weather's great, the food's good, the people are nice, and you have a very comfortable, nice, I guess like elevated sense of luxury. You got Hollywood, you have really creative environments, you have all of these different spaces where no matter what you want to do, I'm sure there's a community for you to find and explore that yourself. I personally love LA. It's where I grew up, and it really is the city that made me who I am today. For me, you may be asking, because I love LA so much, what made me trying to shift my decision? Well, first and foremost, I moved because I wanted to change the pace. When I went to college, I went to school at UC Irvine, which was about 45 minutes from Los Angeles. So I didn't really get that experience of leaving the nest. 45 minutes away, I was driving from Orange County to LA every other day. It felt like when I was running my business, just shipping orders, packing, being present with my family who's really involved in my business. And I felt like this new move to New York would really change my perspective and put me in an uncomfortable environment to grow. I really feel like I thrive when I'm alone, and I thrive when I'm in spaces where I'm forced to adjust and just grow. So going to New York City for me seemed like the perfect place because New York's fast paced, people are successful out here, people are hustling. And I don't know, I just felt like I felt called to come to the city. So there's that. I think I really had this desire to grow beyond what I had in LA. Though I loved LA, it felt very comfortable. I feel like when I'm around my family, around my friends, around my loved ones, I don't always feel as motivated or inspired to maybe go out and make new relationships or go out and find new people in different spaces. I kind of stick in the fashion space, stick in the creative space, maybe the actor space. And I felt like a lot of my relationships kind of reflected that. I didn't think it was a problem, but I just noticed that I was getting a little comfortable and a little complacent, and I wasn't really pushing myself. Being in New York City obviously has changed that 180 degrees, almost 360, and made me just look at the entirety of my life and just my relationships completely different. So let me tell you guys a quick story. What made me originally move was back in, I think, 2023, I had spent a little bit of time going back and forth between LA and New York during Fashion Week. That was probably my first time going out to the city and just really experiencing what it was like to be in New York outside of work. I had come before for like anime expos or anime NYC or Comic Cons, but I had never spent a lot of time, being in the communities and enjoying the spaces. That Fashion Week, I went to a block party and I was like in love with the city. It was in Bushwick, Brooklyn. It was so many black people, so many like just people of color, like really embracing one another. They had so much self-expression, so many sense of styles. Everybody was hustling. You could tell there was a lot of love for the community, but everyone was so expressive. And I felt like LA was missing that. And I felt for me that I belonged in an environment like that. So that just kind of prompted my move to say, hey, look, let me just take the risk and go to New York City. I don't have any kids. I didn't have a girlfriend at the time. So I was like, you know what? Let me just pack up and go. I have nothing to lose. Worst case scenario, I can always come back to LA where my family's at, where my business is at, where my team is at. But right now I felt called to come to the new city, and I've loved it since. So with the explanation I kind of gave, some of you may be asking, was my move personal or was it a professional thing? And the answer is it was a mix of both. On a personal end, I felt like I had wanted to do something new for a while. I love my business, and I think that it has brought me a lot of opportunities in life. But, I started my business when I was 14 years old. I've been running this business for almost 15 years now. And I felt like being in a new environment would kind of force me to try new things and figure out who this new version of Jordan is. Like, what does Jordan like to do? Is he into health? Is he into combat sports? Is he into public speaking? Being in this environment and spending time alone and spending time with like new friends and really just forcing myself to get outside, it was a big motivation for me to say, you know what, let me get out of my comfort zone and figure it out. So on a personal end, I really wanted to grow and just be in a new environment with different people. I wanted to be a part of that community. What I love most about New York is that every borough has some sense of like pride. Everyone loves their community. It's like you go to the Bronx, you see the Dominicans loving themselves, you see the Puerto Ricans, the community stick together. You go in Harlem, it's a lot of black love. There's just a lot of like different love within the communities. There's Jewish communities, there's Italian communities, there's so much stuff that you can learn and see, and it's just such a big melting pot filled with so much inspiration. So I felt like, you know what, on a personal end, if I take some time, go out to New York City, maybe spend some time by myself, it'll force me to discover myself a bit more, and it'll force me to be myself in order to find people who are just like me. So on a personal end, that was kind of like my main motivation. On a professional end, however, same kind of thing. New York City is one of Hypland's biggest customer bases. So I felt it was necessary, if we ever wanted to get into the space out here, to submerge myself in the culture, meet with leaders, be a part of the community, and do things that, the people who live out here would understand and that would resonate with them. I didn't want to just pop up here and just all of a sudden do things that maybe don't make sense or that my customers don't necessarily understand. So on a professional end, that was like a big thing for me. Another thing too is like, I really want to grow as a leader, and I felt like when I was in LA that my team was really reliant on me. And I don't think that as a leader, having that reliance is a bad thing, but I think on the same end, in order for me to unbottleneck my business, I had to move away and be in a space where it forced me to be a better leader. It forced me to be comfortable with delegating things to people, which we'll talk about later. It forced me to hire better team members, and it forced me to really just be comfortable with being a leader. And it kind of lit a fire under my ass, because not only did it force me to do that, but it made me do it quickly. Because if I didn't, guess what? I'd be back in Los Angeles at the same apartment and really just in the office every day doing the same things and not really growing personally or professionally. So I think for me, it's like, on a professional end, that was my main thing. And then two, I think a big thing for me is like growing up in LA, I've done so much. I felt like people in LA know me for multiple things. It's like I've been on reality TV. I've made the Forbes under 30 list. I have this store. I was this kid that was like always hustling, so people know me from that, or tennis. And I felt like I wanted to find a new version of myself, and being in New York City where people don't really know me, it's a fresh environment, allowed me the comfortability to, one, find myself without the preconceived notions or judgments that kind of come with people knowing who you are already, or the familiarity. I wanted to get out here and try public speaking. I wanted to be more of a motivator. I wanted to learn more about finance and money management, and take advantage of the things that New York City is most known for, like even the food. How can I take in this immersive culture and figure out how to just make myself better, but also maybe bring a bit of it back to LA or wherever I end up living after this. It's like, what did I expect versus the reality of what I experienced so far being here. So for those who don't know, I've been in New York City for about a year now, or a year and a half. It has been, like I said, nothing less or nothing short of an amazing experience. I've made new friends. I've been in new environments. I've gone out a ton. I found a lot about myself. My brother just moved out here and he's learning a ton. I say often that New York City is like a mirror. It's like everyone's doing something, and if you're not doing something, you're gonna feel it yourself. It's like you wake up and everybody's motivated. You go outside, people are running, they're doing their fitness stuff. It's like there's 3 million people here, but I think there's 400,000 millionaires. So 1 out of every 10 or 2 out of every 10 people you meet are millionaires. So it's like a sense of this just quiet hustle and motivation that you get from being in the city. So on that question though, for me, I didn't really have too many expectations. I mean, going to the block party, I was like, oh man, I'm finna just be outside all the time, and I meet new people and just kind of get deeper in this fashion space. But I didn't really have too many expectations. I think quickly though, I learned that, I got put into different environments, and I learned that, whereas I love being creative and I love fashion, that I also have so many other interests, and that me just embracing who I am has opened up a lot more doors than me just kind of sticking to the same path. So it's been dope. And I also too, on a perspective of just a business, I think in New York City, you see so many people, so I didn't really understand how big the brand was. I see people wearing things all the time. People come up to me often and tell me how much they love the brand, or how much it's inspired them, or how interviews that they've seen have helped them. So I think it's tight to just kind of get out here and just like see a whole new bit of the world, and just kind of like, it's really unexpected. Being in New York City, the main thing that I didn't expect was that it just opened my world up and set new expectations for what I want in my life. Like, it's like, man, it's like, I didn't think about all the types of ways I could save money, I could invest better, the ways in which I could learn. I didn't think I'd meet these types of friends that I've made. We all pour into each other, so we learn in different things. But I feel like as a person, I've grown. In isolation, I've been doing a lot of different things, like reading and doing things to just get smarter and edify my mind that I hadn't been doing prior. So like I said, I thank New York City for that, because up until this experience, I would have never done those things myself, or even taken that leap of faith to figure out, what I want to do, or who Jordan is, or anything of that nature, rather. Lastly, I think that one thing that being in New York City taught me that I kind of expected, but I didn't expect so fast, is just how to be a better leader, man. I think that, being out here, like I said, it really lights a fire on your ass for you to be a better leader and be more creative. I think being away from your team gives you that like bird's eye view perspective of like what's going on in your business or what's wrong and how to fix that, But on that same end, it's like, what's going wrong? How do you fix it? And how do you become better? How do you learn to delegate? How do you learn to become a better leader? Are you reading more? Like, what are you doing? Like, are you still a student? It's so much stuff that I learned as a result of being in New York. Let's talk about the New York City difference. It's no secret that the pace, discipline, and the just environment of New York City is unique to the state. It's very different from anywhere else I've been on the planet, to be honest with you. And I will say that being in New York City really has a different change of pace, and it is so motivating. I feel like you wake up in the morning and it's always somebody doing something. Even if you're not holding yourself accountable or you have a team of accountability, you can literally wake up and look outside and there's somebody running, there's somebody working, there's somebody doing something at the crack of dawn at any point in time of the day, trying to get it out the mud and hustle. I think that hustle energy is very contagious, and I feel like it really rings on anybody who's an entrepreneur or who has a hard work ethic or wants to be something in life. I think for me, it's like what I said. It's like there's 3 million people in New York City in this small area. So you're constantly interacting with people. You're constantly being inspired by people. There's so many forms of self-expression. There's so many people doing creative things, so many people expressing themselves and just really embracing themselves. And you can learn so much from just the different type of people and interactions that you have. On that same end, it's like what I said earlier. There's over 400,000 millionaires in New York City. And it's not about money, but on the same end, it's about work ethic and drive and the inspiration that you can find in these people. And it's like if 2 almost out of every 10 people you interact with are potentially a millionaire, it's like you're literally seeing and living and breathing with walking examples of like the life that you want to accomplish. What I love most about New York City is that there isn't any flexing. There's flexing, but it's like quiet. It's like, people flex where they live, the lifestyle, how comfortable they are, but you don't see the cars, you don't see the watches, you don't see the jewelry. It's very different from the Hollywood, LA lifestyle. So just being in New York City is just completely different. You just learn so much, really. And it's like, what they say. Being out here and seeing how hard people work, that statement that if you can make it in New York City, you can make it anywhere is really, really, really true. It's honestly crazy because, like I said, the amount of work ethic and people just trying to get it is crazy, especially compared to somewhere like LA where it's a little more laid back, it's a little more comfortable, and I find that people are a little more complacent and creative focused rather than business focused. Shoot. The heart of finance is in New York. Everybody's focused on money. And it ain't always about money, but it is, it's a big playing tool for your happiness and success and what you can accomplish in life. All right. So some of you people have been asking, what's the difference of New York as a creative versus LA? They're both very creative cities. I feel like the main difference that I find with New York versus LA is that you see a lot more creative people because of the structure of New York City. There's always an event going on, but because New York is so small and it's so easy to get around places, I feel like you find more creative people more often. As a result of that, I find that people are a little more collaborative also too. Imagine like in LA, you got to drive 45 minutes to get from, South LA to Hollywood versus New York City, where if you get for 45 minutes on a train, like I don't know where you're going for 45 minutes. I don't think you can go anywhere in the city for 45 minutes, and there's things going on all the time. I think that what makes it easy is it's like easy to walk. People embrace their culture out here. I think because there's so many people around all the time, people are a lot more expressive. They dress nicer. They express themselves through fashion a lot more. You have a lot more individuals and a lot more personal interaction that I think contributes to the creative environment overall. So I think for me, the biggest difference with the creativity is that there is just a lot more, there's a lot more expression, a lot more collaboration, and people in general are just a lot more social because of the nature of the city. Not that LA isn't, but it's like, no, it's different than walking down the street for 30 minutes and running into 15 people, versus like driving somewhere and seeing somebody at an event. It's like, here you get the best of both worlds. So another thing too, some people were asking me is, are there any pros and cons of living in New York City as a Black entrepreneur or just a creative entrepreneur in general? And the only con I'll say is that this is like a pro and a con. So first and foremost, I don't think there's any real cons. I think that if you are comfortable in new environments, New York City or just moving in general is the perfect place for you, or the perfect thing for you to do, because it makes you uncomfortable and it forces you to grow. But I think on the cons end, the only thing I feel is different as an entrepreneur is it can be a little tough to make friends as an entrepreneur, because when you work in environments where maybe you work at home or you work in these small spaces, it kind of forces you to get out the house and, go learn something and go be at a coffee shop. It forces you to take advantage of like social activities and outings to really find and meet other people who are just like you. Luckily for me, I met a lot of my friends through being in Forbes, but had it not been for the fact that Forbes had social events, I wouldn't have made any friends in New York City. At the end of the day, I still had to go to the events. I still had to put myself out there. I still had to be social. I still had to connect with people, and I still had to utilize my interest in order to connect with people on a baseline and just see the foundation of who I am at the end of the day. So no cons, but I will say that as an entrepreneur, it can be very difficult to make friends at times, just because everything is on you and you're always with your team. You're not working in a traditional sense, like being at a place like Google or something where there are hundreds of employees and HR and team building activities. You lose all of that being an entrepreneur, especially in a new city where you have no team and maybe no friends. On that same end, the pros. There are so many pros. I think the biggest pro that I could say is just the community of people that are out here. I find that because people share the same sentiment as me, that it's hard to find friends as an entrepreneur. I find that the people who do host those spaces are really giving and really open. There are so many community initiatives. It's kind of like what I was saying earlier. There's so much cultural pride, and I think that there are a lot of people that want to put on and just kind of return the favor and give back to those who are just like them, and be examples for people who look like them. You know what I mean? So for me, the community is like the biggest pro about being in New York City. On the same piece of what I was saying about supportive, everyone's supportive. But I think on the same end too, it's like there are so many examples of success. Even if you find yourself in communities that are not with people who particularly look like you, there are people who have the same values of you. There are people who have the same interests. There are so many different types of people who, can help contribute to who you are and where you're going, but also help you learn, help you get better. There's just an unlimited plethora of growth opportunities out here. So for me, not too many cons, but the pros are endless. The community being number one. So a lot of you guys have also asked this: if Hypland's based in LA, how are we running the business bi-coastally and what's that like? Honestly, running the business bi-coastally has been a double-edged sword. There have been a lot of positives and a lot of areas that I have been forced to grow in, but there are also some cons that come with that, like anything in life. So first and foremost, the question of how am I running the team remotely? Well, I'll say the first and most important thing is organization. We are so organized now. I have to be comfortable as a leader, and it's been really pushing me to implement a lot of different strategies to organize stuff. We've implemented things like Dropbox for file unification. We have clear communication tools like Slack. We use organization tools like Notion and Monday. We have a ton of different things. Google Calendar to make sure we're meeting on things in time, setting expectations. I've implemented monthly meetings and just regulated times. We've created like schedules that have really helped things. I think that the most important thing that has really been helpful to the business and just in general with this bi-coastal living is, one, just implementing schedules. I think that without having some type of schedule, it's easy to get lost in the day-to-day minutia, especially when you are working with a team that is 3 hours behind. Remember, I have to have my own life as well. If I want to make friends, I got to go outside. If I want to do activities for myself and make sure I'm healthy, I got to go to the gym and do the things that make me happy in life. So having a clear schedule is really important because it opens the door for us to be and have open communication, but on the same end, be a part of my team without being too available. What I mainly really wanted to do was unbottleneck the business, and having clear communication, clear deliverables, expectations, laying out all the things, and really just learning how to be a better leader, but modeling myself as a leader and setting clear expectations for my team has allowed me to just exist in new spaces and just really just be better. I think that there's a ton of different things on there. I think that too, the one thing that you really have to remember is that you need to implement a scale of accountability. We do a ton of that. And I think that as a boss before, when I was living in LA and I had a team, the main thing that I really was bad at was conversation as a leader, and setting clear expectations with measurable output and accountability. I think for me, being in New York City now, it's really forced me to do that, and it's forced me to hire great people. Not having those clear expectations just kind of let my team run all over the place. We were really disorganized. When I did hold my team accountable, it'd be a lot of pushback and arguments because I didn't really set that precedent early on. So being in New York City really just has allowed me to, like I said, become a better leader, but also, open up the floodgates for organization and just being more accountable and better as a leader. Another thing that people may be questioning or interested in is growing my presence, or how I maintain presence with my team in Los Angeles while simultaneously being in New York City. That's a tough one, I'm not gonna lie to you. I think that the main thing that I could say to become a better business leader and maintain the presence is, one, obviously the calls mean everything. Having those clear goals and expectations set are really important, just so that way everybody's on track with work. But making sure that I spend time on those calls to connect with my team beyond the work notions. How can I make their life a little bit better? How can I make sure they're happy? How can I make sure that I'm implementing things and processes in my business that make them happier or make their job a little bit easier? And really on the same end, like, what can I do when I am gone to kind of beef up the bonus and incentive? It's like, can I send you a gift card? Can I make sure you're going out to eat? What can I do to kind of add that extra incentive so you love your job? And on that same end too, really I have to do a good job of making intentional time to hang with my team when I am in LA. When I'm in LA, my first priority always is to make sure that I'm spending time with my team, hanging out with them, even if it is just as a casual hangout situation where we're not even working. It's like making my team members feel like they are regular people, because they are, and playing into their interests and making sure that I get to know them on a deeper level than just saying, hey, look, we work, we see each other on Zoom. It's like, I want to be personally connected, and I want to, create that environment for the people who live in the city also too, The last bit of this subject are challenges of just work remote. I think the biggest challenge that I find is just accountability. And I say accountability from my personal standpoint and a team standpoint. Personal accountability is a little bit different, because when you don't work in an office, waking up every day and getting things done it falls on you 100%. There's nobody waking you up in the morning. There's no team to be accountable for. If you got to go to the office, there isn't a visual checklist that comes with being present in Los Angeles or being present in one particular location. So accountability in a personal sense can be tough. On that same end, setting clear expectations and having accountability to your team. You got to make sure you're holding your team members accountable. When people are gone, it's very easy to kind of fall in a wayside of being a little lazy or kind of putting things off. You have to make sure you set those clear boundaries and expectations for your teams and hold them accountable. On the same end, the biggest challenge I have is communication. And when I say communication, I don't mean like talking to my team one-on-one, but like I said, setting clear expectations, communicating needs, communicating wants, communicating issues, communicating areas of growth, communicating ways in which we can grow and be better. Just overall setting a strong, leadership by experience, communicating with your team, really, to be honest with you. And I think, I think the biggest thing that people don't talk about is like the fact that when you are an entrepreneur, you generally do everything for your business at some point in time before you hand it off to other people. When you're gone working remotely, you can't just jump into tasks. There is no, I'm gonna just get up and do this. It's like, I gotta trust my team. I have to rely on them. I have to delegate these things. I have to learn. So I think that, the biggest challenge is really just being trusting and delegating, and really for the parents out there, letting somebody hold your baby and know that they're gonna be okay. It's like you're giving your stuff to daycare, So on that same end of the challenges, I have a ton of lessons learned that I've had from my experience in New York. Mind you, I've been here for a year and a half, so some of the things I've learned have been amazing. Some of them have been not so amazing, and I'm here to share all that with you. So first things first, how has being in New York City made me a better leader? First and foremost, it's lit a fire under my ass. Sorry to cuss. I try my best not to cuss at all, but it's really lit a fire under me. It's motivated me beyond my prior, intention. It's made me a better leader overall. I think that it created this sense of urgency to sink or swim. It's like moving to New York City was like jumping in the water and it's deep and cold. It's like either I get my breath in order and I swim to shore or I drown. And I felt like being out here has really forced me to do that a bit more. On the same end, it's also forced me to trust my team more and trust delegation. I think that one thing that I struggled with running my business is trusting my team. I've been the guy that can do everything. I can do it at 100%. I could probably do it faster, but is it really worth my time? I was on a plane and someone said, he was like, man, as an entrepreneur, you have to figure out how to stop serving the $20 problems and really figure out how to solve the $500 problem, because as a leader, you're worth the 500 or 1,000 that's gonna get your business there, not the $20 problem like doing things. And I had to be okay with knowing that, even though I can get this done at 100%, if I have a team member who can get it done at 90% or 95% or maybe even 85%, that is just as good, because I can go out and be the leader and acquire new things for us and learn other opportunities and do things that are ultimately going to grow the business overall. That's I would say that's my main takeaway with just like being a leader in the space and how I've learned as a result of being in New York City. So on the same end, outside of entrepreneurship, New York City has opened my perspective to a lot of different things. It's really changed my creativity, it's changed my long-term vision, and it's really just changed the way in which I think about life overall. So first and foremost, like I said, the culture of New York is very different. Being around these types of people has really just opened my eyes to what it's like living in a new space. I question all the time now, do I want to live in New York when I have a family? Do I want to live in LA? Do I want to live in somewhere like Florida? Do I want to live in somewhere like that's just a bit different? It's also introduced me to a bunch of different new opportunities and just ways in which you can make money. Finance is huge out here, and I've made tons of new friends that are so smart, and it's like I said, it's opened my world to like the activities I want to do. Remember, we're multifaceted individuals. Though I have hypland, I have other things I want to do, and being in New York City has made me want to pursue that a little bit more. Hence the reason why we're even doing these videos in the first place. It's like, how can I put myself out there and do a little bit more? There's always something to be done. From a health angle, it's made me want to be a better, just a health person, take my fitness seriously. How can I go run? It's like, I see the guys running outside every day. It's like, how can I be like that? It's like, I want to have all aspects of my life together. I want to be smarter. I want to read more. I want to be more articulate. I want to give back to more communities, and I want to be an example for people. And I feel like that only came as a result of living and seeing people who do that same thing in New York City. I think the last thing is it just opened my eyes and perspective. Like I said, I had never left LA before. So just seeing a new walk of life in people and culture and just being introduced to the crazy melting pot that New York is was an amazing experience. And I honestly wouldn't trade it for anybody. I think, and that's kind of like my main thing. So I think if you're watching this video, the main takeaways I really want you to leave with today is that, one, if you're thinking about going somewhere, just take the risk, man. Jump into the water. Don't put your foot in there. Just go out and do that. I think when you're young, you have really a very few amount of opportunities to go out and explore. And I think that being in a new environment like a New York City or wherever you want to move will kind of force you to be out there. It'll force you to find yourself. It'll force you to find your tribe, and it'll really make you get uncomfortable to grow. Remember, growth only comes from discomfort. It comes as a result of adversity. So if you can put yourself in those scenarios and trust yourself, but also challenge yourself, you'll build and get new opportunities galore. I really just want to add to that and just say that moving really tests who you are. I think you got to get out there and just take that risk. I don't really have too much, takeaways, except that moving and being in a new environment is amazing, and you'll find a lot more than what you expect. I think that if you do end up moving, make sure that you have an open mind, because you never know what you're going to get into. Shoot, I came out here thinking I was going to be partying and hanging around close people, and now my best friends are all in finance and tech, and I've been learning about investing and just being outside and just health and fitness and just people who have the same values. I've been getting closer to God. It's been an amazing experience, and I would have never been like this had I didn't come to New York City. So I think that that's kind of like the main takeaway that I have for everybody. And as I end this video, if you guys are out there and you're contemplating moving somewhere or you want to go somewhere, leave it in the comments of where you guys want to go. I think you should definitely take the risk. Let me know what you guys think about where you want to go, why you want to go there, why you feel compelled, and what you assume you might get as a result of it. Put it out there, put it on paper, and hopefully, you get the same feeling that I got. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you leave a like and a comment. Let me know if there's anything that you want me to talk about or that you did or didn't like about this video. I read every comment, and I'm thankful for everybody that watches this. Hopefully I teach somebody something and you guys walk away with something new. But yeah, we out for the day. This is Jordan Bentley, and I'll see you guys again soon. Peace.